And we're live. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Hangry, Caveman. And today we've got Stephen Davies. How are you, buddy?
Hello, guys.
So me and Steve known each other for a good few years back in the old days. He's a physiotherapist now, one that we actually trusting our faith into him. So how have you been doing?
Yeah, I've been pretty good, mate. So I've been home isolating for the last 3 weeks, as we all have.
Yeah.
And as we'll probably go through like some things today, it's just about getting a routine, having a couple of things in your day just to keep you ticking over, trying to separate your Monday to Friday from the weekend. And generally that just keeps you sane and keeps you ticking over. So I'm healthy, mate. I can't complain.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, at the moment, I think everyone's in the same boat. I'm not sure what day they're in. Everyone's all getting messed up at the moment, right?
Yeah, I definitely had periods of the week last week where I struggled to know what day it was, and time really just passes you. But I think it's perfectly normal to have days like that, and it's perfectly normal to have sort of days of low motivation. But as I was saying to like one of my mates earlier this morning, it's all about how you bounce back from those low days, and it's all about how you strive forwards that really sort of makes the difference on a daily pattern.
I mean, a few weeks ago, it was definitely the first initial week. It was definitely not just a low day, it was a low week, I think. How was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, same?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, mate. I would agree with that.
So what have you been up to in the last few years since back the old days? So brief introduction. Me and Stephen met back in LA days. You were the one treating all of us crazy bastards out there with our crazy training schedule, weren't you, buddy?
So look, so I reckon it's got to be coming up to like 10 years now since I've known you. So yeah, LA Fitness, when LA Fitness was the thriving gym that was dominating the gyms all across the country. I was fortunate to be the sole physio in the one in London Wall, where there was about 15 personal trainers. But it was a good breed of personal trainers. There was such a variety. There was such a competitive edge. There were so many different types of personal trainers, which then naturally just came with lots of different problems, lots of different injuries. And that's where I came in. Yeah. And I think, and this is a credit to yourself and also the reason why you're doing things like this, is that everyone who worked there had a strive for progressing and learning. The PTs that I have a close relationship with are the ones that keep on moving. Yeah. And every PT at LA Fitness at London Wall was that kind of person, which includes you yourself. So I think it was a good team. And as you say, it was a bit of the glory years. But yeah, going from then, obviously LA Fitness closed down. It changed to Pure. My company as a physio had to look for different locations. So I worked in city golf. So I specialised in looking after golfers for 2 to 3 years. We then dotted around the city. I went in and out of different companies. I then did further education. So I did my master's in sports and exercise medicine at Queen Mary's, which is where sort of physios, doctors and podiatrists all learn together to just make sure that you can specialise in sports medicine. And then I moved to Pure Sports Medicine, which is seen as one of the best. Just to be involved in sort of the multidisciplinary team a little bit more. So we've got like S&C coaches, osteopaths, we've got a load of sports doctors, Pilates instructors. And then recently I've just set up on my own. So just to diversify, just like you guys, try and have a finger in a couple of different pies. It's times like this where you realise you can't put all your eggs in one basket. So I've just set up my own clinic called Real Physio London. Okay. So that's me in a nutshell with regards to what I've been doing professional-wise. On the side, I've been doing my usual thing, lots of marathons. Currently training for a half Ironman, which I'm sure we'll get into later on in this conversation, just because it's been pretty difficult since Corona's existed. And then my usual just sort of weight training, bit of golf here and there, but just generally stuff to keep me fit.
Nice, man. I mean, like, who are you doing this charity half marathon for? Which is a charity.
Sorry, so it's not for charity. It's I should make it for charity. My last couple of marathons I did for charity, which was, I did it for the Crohn's and colitis charity. But this one, the half Ironman, is just the classic. Me and my best friend, just naturally all-time competitors in life. Yeah. I did a load of marathons. He did a load of half Ironmans, and then we did a switcheroo. He did marathons, and then this year was the year we were both going to do the half Ironman and race against each other. But it's been postponed for a year, no doubt.
Oh, it's one of them situations. So Corona's kicked it in the teeth as well then.
Yeah, so I've managed to maintain my cycling. So I bought a turbo trainer at the back end of the winter, thinking that I wasn't going to get much use from it. And then Corona locked down the roads 3-4 weeks ago, and it's been my most valuable tool. So the reason why I'm perspiring a little bit now is I've just got off the turbo train. I've just done an hour. So my morning routine is I get up, I meditate, I do a bit of work, and then I jump on the turbo trainer for an hour to an hour and a half. And then it still gives me the option to be able to do my hour of exercise without sort of breaking any rules. And that can be like a run, it can be a bit of power circuit, it can be sort of going out with the missus and so on. So I'd be really, really fortunate to be able to have that turbo trainer so I can keep up my cycling and my running fitness. My drawback is the swim. All swimming pools have been closed, obviously, for the last 4 weeks. So that's the one that's taken a bit of a fall.
Yeah, you do what you can, right? I mean, at the moment, if you've got your turbo trainer, you can still technically run outside and you're still maintaining.
Yeah. Yeah, and would you believe I've managed to... I work with a triathlon coach, and he sort of managed to send me some swimming home exercises, would you believe, which is a lot of swinging of the arms back and forward. My wife finds it hilarious when I'm stood in the kitchen just doing the backstroke for about 4 minutes with 2 water bottles in hand. But these are the situations that we're presented, and it's times like this where you've got to almost seek out the opportunities. You've got to work with what's around you in the same way that you're doing this. In the same way, there's loads and loads of education. I think it's an amazing time right now for people that work in the health profession, because we're now forced to volunteer all this information, and it's almost fast forwarded people doing these things because of the effect of a disease and because of home isolation, that now you have got this wealth of information that's free and available to everyone worldwide. I think it's an amazing opportunity, or silver lining of a cloud.
I think this is why Hangry Caveman started. I just want to, rank all of you guys, the people who I trust and have the faith in their opinions on this health industry. Got you all to come here, give a little bit of advice, a little bit of background, just to get it out there, because we know so much, but at the same time, when we're working, we don't actually give ourselves a platform to voice out the knowledge that we all have.
Yeah, and I remember you sitting down with me about 4 years ago saying that you wanted to get this together, not in a podcast format, but in some digital platform. So all credit to yourself, and obviously your loyalty is maintained. You've kind of had this bubbling on for a while, and it's because of, whether it be the corona or whether it be because time's advanced, that you finally managed to put this thing together. So, man, I think what you're doing is an amazing thing.
Thanks, man.
I think it's great to bring everyone together. I think it's something that will really, really snowball. And best of luck to you.
Just get it out there. Just the knowledge to get it out there to help people. That's all it is right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you went briefly on about meditation. We talk about meditation a lot. What kind of meditation do you do then, and how do you do yours?
Yeah, so it's funny you should say that. So as a physiotherapist, I've been encouraging people to meditate. So I qualified 14 years ago. So that receding hairline is showing my age. I've been encouraging people to meditate for the best part of 10 years.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say I have not been self-practicing it the way that I believe is beneficial right up until 3 months ago or 4 months ago. So I use Headspace. And primarily because I feel as if it's a little, one, it's mindfulness. Two, from what I've read about it, it helps me break into the pattern of meditation. And most importantly, I do it consistently. So I've dipped in and out of headspace and I've dipped in and out of meditation before. Yeah. But like anything, like training, like running, like cycling, like learning a new language, if you don't practice it and be consistent with it, you're not going to see those improvements. So what I mean by me actually listening or practicing what I preach, since December, religiously, I do it daily.
Nice.
And now I've got to a stage where I don't notice the benefits when I do it. I notice the difference when I don't do it. Yes. So, for me, I read lots and lots of autobiographies about successful people. So the last one I read was about Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I don't know, have you read Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography?
Not yet.
I would highly recommend it. If you ever need some motivation, I couldn't recommend it more strongly enough. So, this guy earned his first $1 million, not in acting, not in bodybuilding, but in real estate.
Yeah.
So when he first moved to America, he was doing his bodybuilding. He was at UCLA doing business studies. He had like a huge amount of property. He had a mailing system. He was taking acting lessons. He was doing all these things all at once. And they sort of said, mate, how could you possibly fit all these things into your day? And he was just like, he found meditation during the 70s. And then other books that I've read as well would be like Elon Musk and stuff. It seems that and Richard Branson, all these successful people all have meditation as part of their like daily routine. And I've found it now, it just sets my day up. So first thing in the morning, I go into the living room, glass of water before I eat, before I really look at my phone or anything like that, just 10 minutes meditation. And, you can see the addictive element in it. How about yourself? How do you meditate?
Oh man, I mean, I think my mum introduced me to meditation. It wasn't traditional meditation. It was just, I think what you guys would call mindfulness nowadays, just think about what's been happening and how you get the days out and just being quiet and just having a center point for yourself. And then all these typical kung fu movies, they all go back to meditation. As like when we watch as a kid, I mean, they all go back to it. So you're trying to emulate and copy. I think that's where I got it from. If I don't do it, I know, like you said, I know it's a different when I don't do it. If I do it, it's just what it is. It's just part of my life now.
Yeah. Like the analogy that I use, so I'm a physio, so I love analogies, right? So the analogies I use is, do you remember when you have like an old-fashioned Microsoft computer, and when you downloaded music and you had pictures, and all of a sudden that computer slowed up, and you needed to apply that program called defragmentation? And what defragmentation does, you've got a box and you've got lots of items everywhere. What the defragmentation does is it just draws everything to one corner, so it frees up loads of space. That's what I find meditation does for me.
That's great, man. I mean, like, everyone does it different. Everyone has a different way of seeing it. Definitely.
And like, to use like my wife as an example. So her mum sent her a puzzle, 1,000-piece puzzle to do last week.
Okay.
And, I've never seen her so quiet. For a full week, she was doing this puzzle, but it was amazing. And that was her form of meditation. It's the art of not thinking about the daily stresses or the daily worries or the work stresses or even training stresses. Lots of people so in where I work, it's a lot of people in high-powered, stressful environments. And, one of the questions I will always ask them is, how do you manage your stress? And 9 out of 10 of the patients will say, well, I manage my stress through weight training, or I manage my stress through running, or I manage my stress through doing a triathlon or getting in the pool every morning.
Yeah.
And then I sort of say, okay, so if your way of managing your stress is running, and you can't run at the moment because you've got a fracture, or you can't swim because you're having a knee operation, like, what's your other strategy? You've put all your eggs in one basket. So I personally believe, yes, we know running and exercise and weight training is a great way to release those endorphins, which makes you happy, which reduces your stress, which makes you sleep better. But it's also important to diversify. And in the same way you're seeking out opportunities now, I had a very really tough conversation with a patient 2 weeks before Corona where she'd had her ACL replaced, which meant that she couldn't get in the pool for 4 weeks, and she was a swimmer all of her life. And, there was lots of stuff going on at home as well as work. And, she broke down in tears. She was like, "You can't tell me I can't swim." And I was just like, I can't tell you to do anything. I can only advise you.
Yeah.
But now is the time to seek out other opportunities to work out how to reduce your stress. Now's the opportunity to really think about different strategies. And, she left, she was in tears. She left, she sent me a nice email that afternoon sort of saying, "Look, you were right. It was just really hard to hear." And then 2 weeks later, she's told me she's found something. It doesn't need to be headspace. It doesn't need to be reading. It doesn't need to be playing an instrument. But the key thing to keep your body happy at times of stress and going in the lines of going down meditation is finding out what works out for you. Sorry, mate, I've rabbled on a little bit there.
It's like people being in isolation right now. I think it gives them a really good opportunity just to quiet themselves, quiet their mind. Because previously we had to work and we had to go out.
So this is the first time, I use a lot of information from the people around me. So my brother just said it as a phrase last week. He was just like, "This is like pressing the reset button."
Yeah.
For the first time, the whole world is being treated exactly the same. It doesn't matter whether you're old, young, rich, famous, celebrity, not overtrained, undertrained. This is all having an impact for this. And like you say, being in home isolation is just resetting us back to natural processes. It's like, okay, what are we going to eat? What are we going to do to relax? What are we going to do to stimulate our mind? How are we going to exercise? How am I going to improve the relationship with my children, my wife, my loved ones? This is literally just like pressing the reset button. And I'm a physio, so I'm always an optimist, but I really think that a lot of people are going to come out of this stronger because, especially working in London, when are we given the time to be able to read? When are we given the time to be able to create? When are we given the time to actually go, "Oh, wow, my children are 3 and 5 and, I haven't seen them growing up because I've been working in the city 12 hours a day and then I've been training really hard and then I only get to see them on the weekend and I've got weekend plans as well." Or when are we given the opportunity to read a couple of books? And, in the same way I talk about diversifying of our management strategies of stress, I think it's important to diversify what you read as well. Have like a variety of things. It shouldn't all be self-help books. It shouldn't all be fictional stuff. It should be a variety. A simple thing of now's the time to try and listen to different types of music. How much have you been given the opportunity to be able to go, "Oh, wow, maybe I will listen to Radio 6 today. Maybe I will stick on Spotify and stick on a playlist that I've never even heard before." You may find stuff you like, you may find stuff that you don't like, but ultimately we're now given the time to be able to try these things. And that's where I think exercise also comes in as well. We're almost resetting our body to be able to get those basic exercises down because we are limited with stuff. We are limited to exercise. You put up stuff with tires. So if people have a car, they'll have a spare tire in the back. So all of a sudden they can build up those movement patterns. The same way that you kettlebell swinging with that tire, that's a lovely movement. I give that to my patients all the time, but people might not necessarily have thought of doing that.
Yeah. It's just like doing things and finding equipment around the house or around the garage or wherever you are, just finding something to do. It all started from somewhere. I'm sure back in the days where people didn't have barbells and kettlebells, they just find the heaviest they think and just swing it around and just throw it around, right?
Well, one of your favourite movies, Rocky, the Rocky workout.
Rocky 4.
It was flipping tires, it was doing stuff with chains, doing stuff with wood on shoulders. That's the what do they do? What do they call that? The caveman workout or something like that?
Yeah. What was it? Caveman workout. Like Rocky 4. Anyone that's into training will remember the Rocky 4 montage.
Yeah. Yeah, it obviously helps that I think it was Rocky IV when that music came in as well. I had
Fire, hearts on fire. Never stops. I mean, I think that's every single trainer out there and everyone who trains. Rocky IV montage is the go-to.
Yeah.
I mean, have you been training yourself? I mean, like, not excluding your marathon Ironman stuff. I mean, have you done any other exercises?
Supplementary stuff. Yeah. So, you know, for me, because I am, well, I'd normally be running, cycling and swimming 2 to 3 times a week of each of the disciplines.
Yeah.
And as a physiotherapist, I personally believe that I can't get away with doing those things without sticking in some strength work in there. So I was really, really lucky. I was had access to lots of heavy weights before Corona. So I was sticking in my, 70 to 80% one rep max.
Nice.
Like jumping, trap bar squats, trap bar deadlifts. I was throwing in my single leg presses. I was really getting into my power training. Yeah. And of course, that's all had to go by the wayside, which means I'm now having to do a lot of these home workouts. I unfortunately don't have any weights either.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of body conditioning, but it's amazing how when you look around the house, what you've got available to you. So, and just because you're unable to increase load more times your body weight,
yeah.
You change the angle and you're able to achieve these things. So instead of doing a plank superset on the floor, you do a plank superset with your legs raised.
Yeah.
Instead of doing normal push-ups, if you've got the ability and you've got the strength to be able to do handstand push-ups, all of a sudden you've increased the load because you're using gravity against you.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I say, I've been doing a lot of swinging of my arms for maintaining the swimming stability around my shoulders. And then I'm really, really fortunate that with the pure sports that I work with, we've also got a team fitness on a Wednesday as well, where everyone comes together, whether it be the front of staff, admin staff, whether it be people sat in reception or the physios. Everyone normally comes together on a Wednesday and we do a bit of a circuit training. And, it's things, and we've managed to maintain this with the concept of Zoom, but it's things like that, bringing people together and having that camaraderie that I think will maintain a little bit more sanity and a little bit more normality with working from home. I'm yet to see it, but I'm a big fan of like almost the group classes as well. I think we do, yes, it's great to have one-to-one training, but I also think we improve within a group element. And I know there's a bit of research to support that as well. So yeah, between that, I'm pretty much training 6 days a week. So I've got 1 day off, but everything's quite structured. Everything's quite varied. And everything's like planned. It was geared obviously for the Ironman, but so I've now tapered back on the duration, but the intensity is the same.
Nice.
Yeah. It's one of these things where I want to be maintaining what I had as much as I can on the back end of this. So, when we're out of home isolation, I'll really get back, with my feet running.
Yeah, let's hope so.
How about yourself? What have you been doing?
This, home training, getting ready and just writing different things and talking to all my friends and clients and see what they do. And yeah, polishing cars. That's my active meditation at the moment.
Yeah, the wax on, the wax off.
Wax off. I mean, cars is my other hobby apart from training. And being back here, I mean, definitely enjoying the time with the cars and just washing and cleaning them at the moment. Especially this morning's been one of them mornings.
It's like it's times like this where you sort of pick up new skills as well. So I've learned how to service my bike, which is pretty bad. And this is just a push bike. Don't get me wrong; it's not my motorbike. That I guess. Did you know I used to ride a motorbike?
Yep.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I gave it up last year with getting married. I gave up my motorbike. It had to go. It wasn't being used. So now I'm just left to my push bike. So for all the cyclists out there, it's being able to do your own service is an invaluable tool. It saves you quite a lot of money. It gets you out of trouble. And most importantly, there is a skill to it. There's a sort of mechanical element behind it. You know, I've sort of inherited a bit of a engineering background from my father and grandfather. So I like to see how stuff works. And, you know, doing that, once again, feeds into your meditation, feeds into upskilling, feeds into your element of really sort of coming out of this a little bit stronger than when you went in. And I'm sure it's the same for when you're polishing your car.
Yeah, man. I mean, can't do any major stuff with the cars at the moment, but it would have been great if you had a spare engine lying around. Would have just switched it and propped it in, but you know.
That's the dream. I've still got big hopes of having a kit car when I'm older.
Do it. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right. Any advice for people at home? I mean, everyone's looking for our training programs. I mean, I've been asked so many times about, oh, are you doing this? Are you doing that? I'm like,
so advice for people at home. First of all, so talk about maybe the posture element. So because we're all now being forced to work from home, so some of my patients who work in sort of finance or IT services, the reports that I'm getting back from them is actually they're working harder than they were in the office. So they're putting in big 10-hour days. Yeah. And if they weren't normally working from home, the home setup or the desk setup is pretty important. Now, I'm not one of those physios where I think there's a perfect posture out there. I don't believe that we're all supposed to be sat bolt upright. I'm the sort of physio which is backed with research that believes that movement is the key. You know, our body doesn't like a static posture of any kind, whether it be stood bolt upright, whether it be slouched, or whether it be, you know, sat S-shaped on the sofa. Movement is the key. So if you're able to adopt movement on a daily basis or a sitting basis through the day, it's going to keep you back a little bit happier. You know, bad posture doesn't cause back pain, but I certainly believe that a static posture can make your back pain a little bit worse, and moving of a variety of postures can turn that pain down a little bit. So if you don't have the perfect desk setup, you know, something that I'm a big advocate of is if you've got to start working in your bed, on your laptop, then change it to stood up in the kitchen, you know, do it almost as like a stand-up desk. Then if you're fortunate enough to have like a dining room table, sit at the dining room table and then go to the coffee table. And that variety of 4 different rooms, 4 different postures should just keep you back a little bit happier. Now, obviously, if you're stuck to one room and you've got an office, then just movement is the key. You know, I've got some patients that will be moving less because they're at home and they don't have the distractions and they don't have to get changed and they don't go get a coffee and they don't go out for lunch. So they are just being static all day. And like I said, this isn't causing back pain, but it can certainly make it more painful. So keeping yourself moving is really, really key. Now, the other really big bit of advice that I do just want to give is, you know, it's important that we're not overloading and overtraining. So, you know, using myself as an example, I've told you that I'm training 6 times a week. Yeah. Now, my body is used to training 6 times a week. And within those 6 times a week, I'm, you know, cycling 3 times, I'm running 2 or 3 times, I'm doing some circuit training, but they're split up. And most importantly, they're split up with intensity. And they're split up with distance and frequency as well. Because lots of people have the opportunity to exercise most days, if you're doing a circuit class, if you're doing a Pilates class, if you're doing a yoga, if you're even running and you're doing the same thing over and over and over, then your body is really not going to like this. And specifically, your tendons. So we know that if you're doing something that is high tendon loading, so, you know, tendons are energy storing units. They like to be stiffened up. They don't like to be stretched. We know that if we're doing lots of tendon volume related exercises, so this could be running, these could be jumping, squats, then that causes the tendon to break down. Now that's perfectly fine. That tendon breaks down and it recovers. The type of collagen that it's made for, we know that it takes about 24 to 48 hours to recover, and it recovers stronger. But if the rate of breakdown is quicker than the rate of recovery, then that's all of a sudden when we start getting pathology, and that's when we start getting pain, and that's when we start getting a bit of discomfort. So if you're not used to running, if you're not used to doing all these jumping squats, and you're doing it every single day, then that puts you in a higher percentage of having a bit of a tendinopathy, whether it be to the knee or whether it be to the Achilles.
Yeah, I think
so those things are really going to sort of flare up. And that's where, in a perfect world, you would go see a physio and they would check it out. But at times like this is where you've just got to back off a little bit, speak to someone that has good information, and then start treating it. It's very, very common, that when people sign up to, say, doing a marathon and they're not used to running, they sign up in January, they do 4 or 5 running sessions in a week. It's fine for the first month. They start getting a pain in the second month, which is February. Then all of a sudden, as that pain really increases, they back off. It doesn't improve. They go back to it. It flares up, and they start coming to see the physio in March. So, we're now 3 weeks or going into week 4 of isolation. If you are one of these people where you start to see these symptoms creep up, it means that we haven't got something right, or we haven't sort of got the right kind of training. So that's where it's worth speaking to a physio.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, it's definitely going to be a lot of these people coming up soon, because I'm not sure if you notice, a lot of online free training program consists a lot of running, a lot of impact training. And I think that your general population who hasn't been training or used to kind of volume, it's going to be in that category, right?
Yeah. I would never want to take away anything from Joe Wicks, but once again, using someone else's information, I saw this morning, they were like, here's a couple of tips to try and avoid the Joe Wicks injury, which, is a reality because he's getting people to exercise every single morning, which is fantastic. I think he's done an amazing thing. It's just important that we make sure we're listening to our body. The program would be better if it was tailored to us as an individual rather than a generic program. And this isn't just pulling out Joe Wicks, it's anything with running, it's anything with circuit classes. Just cautious that we be aware of the stress that we're putting through. And, in the same way, I don't want to scaremonger people. I think this is great that we're all given the time to exercise, and it's great that we're given time to do all of these things. I just think it's really important that you do it with a bit of a tailored approach or a bit of advice. So I'm sure you're giving sort of one-to-one sessions to your current clients where you're really making it individualized and tailored to them more than anything else.
I mean, there's going to be a little bit plug-in for myself now, but I've just finished off a 7-day training program.
Yeah.
But on a 7-day training program, there's a full 7-day rotation. There's minimal impact, minimal same pattern of movement. Every day is different. So my thinking is, if somebody who's never trained before could go 7 days, or just 7 days with a couple of days rest in between somewhere, and they'll still be fine. But at the end of however long they train this and use this program for, I mean,
yeah,
it's hard because without seeing the clients or without seeing the people out there what they're actually like beforehand, I mean, it's hard to prescribe any sort of training program. But this one, I'm trying to minimize any damages that could potentially be there.
And this is where it gets really difficult. And thank God for Zoom and the internet. And I'm sure if the same thing occurred during the 80s, a lot more people would be struggling. But it's so difficult, and the reason why some of these programs are potentially leading to injuries, to make sure that we're doing these exercises correctly. We need to make sure that we use the things around us, whether it be Zoom with a personal trainer or a physio, whether it be using mirrors. For the people that have good basic movement patterns, for the people that have a good understanding about training, the situation that they're in at the moment isn't necessarily a bad thing, because they can just capitalize on those things. But how many times have you had to teach someone how to do a lunge properly, and how many times have you had to teach someone how to do a deadlift? And if we're not making sure that we're getting the right technique, I'm not saying it can cause injuries, but it can certainly put you in a bit of a higher category for that to happen. So, I think the more and more, similar to you using this podcast to sort of disseminate this knowledge, the more and more that we sort of use the things around us, the mirrors, the education, the back, the to and fro from Zoom, I think the better the population will be.
Let's hope so. And that's all we're trying to do, just pass the knowledge that we have and just see where it goes. We can't do more than that.
And I think it's really important that people have to take into consideration that injuries is not just an element of being too weak, or muscles being too tight, or you not being strong enough, or you not being able to do an exercise correctly. There's so many components of the reason why we have injuries, and more we realize that it's a multifactorial approach. So, for example, if I use a patient that I had maybe 2 weeks before Corona went in, so he pulled his hamstring playing football, right? And I sort of said, young lad, 23 years old, stockbroker, big ego, far more intelligent than myself. He's like, I don't get it. I've never had an injury in my life. I do everything right. Why all of a sudden did it go now? And, going through lots of questions that we do as a physiotherapist, talking about your health and talking about what you're doing, your stresses, work, and so on. Eventually, as a physiotherapist, you work out sort of key little triggers. And I sort of explained to him, and as he gave sort of the information to me, he was under a high load of stress because it was near the year end. So he particularly wasn't sleeping well. So, he was sleeping the 4 and 5 hours a night because he was a stockbroker and he was having to socialize on an evening. We know that golden hour of 8 hours would be the time. So the fact that I always use is, we know a professional athlete is 1.7 times more likely to get injured if they sleep less than 8 hours. Yeah. And once again, I don't give that information to scare people, but I give that information to go, look, if you want to reduce your injury rate, if you want to make this feel better, then getting up towards the 7 or 8 hours would be better for us. So we knew that his sleep was low. And then also because he was drinking quite a lot, because he was having to socialize for work. So he was out 3-4 times a week. We know that when we have alcohol, it doesn't cause injuries, but it delays the healing process. Yeah. So if he's not sleeping well, he's then got alcohol. We also knew that his nutrition wasn't so good either. So, he was doing lots of training. He was playing football 3-4 times a week. But after football, he was going out drinking. He wasn't getting his protein in. He also wasn't hydrating himself. So it's like the perfect storm. And then, I was sort of saying, how stressed are you at the moment? He goes, oh, I'm super stressed. He didn't have any other strategies to manage it. And I was like, well, look, so you're really stressed. You're overtraining. You're not recovering. Yeah. You're not doing any of your active stuff to give your body the best opportunity. That's the perfect storm whilst this hamstring, finally went. So it's really, really important that people really understand that, injuries aren't just a component of one thing. It's more of a multifactorial cause. But in a fantastic way, not only can it be a cause, but it can also be a way of getting it better. So, the education that I give him, I was just like, okay, well, look, if you can not drink over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we know after an acute hamstring strain, there's an inflammatory process where if you optimize the healing, we know we can't speed up the healing process, but we can definitely optimize it. Yeah. If you knock off the alcohol, if you sleep a little bit better, if you get your protein in, if you do your active recovery stuff, you do the exercises that I give you, that's going to optimize that healing process. If all of a sudden you're not sleeping well, you're boozing really hard, you're only doing the physio exercises here and now, then all of a sudden that's going to slow that healing process down. You know, it's too often that we almost think that the quick fix, or we look for that magic bullet. As you know, the magic bullet doesn't exist. You know, to keep our bodies happy, in the same way with you, with a good training 4 or 8 week program, it's all about consistency, and it's all about doing all of those little things to make it good, as opposed to one quick treatment or one quick exercise.
I mean, people don't realize how this perfect storm is assembled is really easily, especially in the city with all our guys that we see, man.
Yeah. And, you know, I almost always give the information in a way to say, look, I don't want you to live like a perfect, you know, like a monk or a nun. You know, I'd be a hypocrite to say that I did. Yeah. But if I present you the information, then it's up to you to make the decision, and it's up to you to see what the impact is. And it's so funny, you know, especially with some of my back pain patients, where I'll talk about the impact of alcohol and poor sleep. And to begin with, they just go, yeah, I've heard that before. And then a couple of weeks further down the line, they go, oh, actually, I didn't realize how much impact it did have. Or, you know, an acute ankle sprain or a post-op ACL, you know, I'll see them on a Monday or a Tuesday, and they will know, and I will know if they've had a big weekend out on the town on like a Saturday or Sunday, because of the amount of swelling there, you know? And it's just because, you know, alcohol doesn't cause the injury, but it definitely delays the healing process. And, you know, as well as like with like smoking as well. So I think at times like this, especially when we are a little bit more restricted to what we can do if we do get injuries, it's also important for us to be aware of those other things. And, you know, I think they also have a bit of an like impact with your mental health as well. Like I'm a firm believer of, you know, if you eat well, if you sleep well, and if you hydrate yourself, these are all the basic, and you know, do the right amount of exercise. And then the fifth component is reducing your stress levels. They're the 5 basic things to keep our bodies happy. Doesn't matter what condition you have, you know, whether you have diabetes or whether you have an acute ankle sprain. So if all of a sudden, you know, we've just gone through Easter where we might not have been eating correctly, and we might have drank a little bit more than we'd liked, and we might not have done as much exercise we'd like, no wonder we felt a bit rubbish yesterday or on Tuesday or Monday. You know what I mean? It's like, it's one of those things, you know, if you look at what you've eaten, you look at what you drank, look at what you've done, we are going to feel a little bit worse. And, you know, I think it's perfectly fine to have times like that. You know, going back to the conversation back at the very beginning where I was saying, you know, we are going to have lower days of motivation. That's perfectly fine. You know, that is perfectly normal. But it's all about how we bounce back, and it's about how we recover and how we change it. So, you know, Monday was my rest day. It was a bit of a recovery from the weekend. Tuesday, straight back into training, straight back into the meditation, straight back into eating correctly. And then you set your week up a little bit better.
So people just need to take a few moments, meditate, figure out what they need to do in the coming weeks, and get on with it.
And look, what I always sort of stress to my patients is, I personally don't think we can all be exactly the same, right? The world is barbaric to think that we can treat everybody the same. And this is why, as a physiotherapist, I would never prescribe patients the exact same exercises for the same condition I might have given to someone else. I would never give the exact same information. I would never have the same treatment plan. I'm sure it's the same with you and your clients. You know, we all have to work out our own individual ways. You know, my set routine of getting up, meditating, exercising, eating, bit of an online course, and I do a bit of like creative stuff because I'm like converting a wooden crate into a bedside table for the wife. That works for me, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to work for everyone else. And, you know, at times like this, it's about trying to find out what works out for you, because, you know, we're not robots. We're not robots. In the same way you teach someone how to do a deadlift or, you know, an Olympic lift to one person might be slightly different to another person, because, you know, we are all so different.
We are all so different, buddy.
Yeah.
Oh, when do you think this is going to be over, man?
Oh, mate.
It's a magic question.
That's the $1 million question, unfortunately. So, you know, without sounding too pessimistic or not, and my wife, the hero, she's the true hero. She's still working on the NHS on the front line. So she's going into the acute hospitals. We're following a very similar line to Italy.
Okay.
And what are we? We're sort of into week 4 of quarantine, and those guys are they're in quarantine for like 71 days. And yes, they're starting to reduce the quarantine, and I know they were doing it in sort of Spain and France and so on, but I think we've got a good while before normality. I don't think normal is going to be for another 6 months, realistically. I think it seems that we're getting things a little bit under control, but I think there's still more tough times ahead, and it's about the slow integration into normal life. I think that will be the tough challenge. You know, I think the NHS is, as I'm sure everyone thinks it, is doing a superb job. The government, it's very easy to blame, and it's very easy to pick faults and mistakes, but you know what? They are just doing their best with the information that they've got. You know, this is sort of unprecedented times, and you know, we can only go with what we think is right. You know, our Health England does stuff based on evidence. You know, we don't want to rush this process. You know, in the same way we would treat our athletes and say, look, this is a slow burner, it's going to be the same way to get out of this. If all of a sudden we've released quarantine and everyone goes out, we'll be back to square one again. It'll be, well, from what I believe anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you, man.
What do you think?
No, I agree with you. I don't think this is going to be a short thing. I think we're going to be locked down for a little bit more.
I think so. There's you look at the other countries that are sort of a few steps ahead of us, and you know, even back to sort of China, they're releasing it now, but they did lockdown from what, the 31st of December.
No comment.
So it's a good 3 or 4 months we've got to go through this, and we're on week 4. Yeah. So this is just the start. But you know, once again, like, the available information that's out there is absolutely amazing. So like, even like the opera that was released on Sunday, and you know, you've got virtual museums, you've got information like yourself, there's like movies out there, there's music, there's so many things that is coming out because of this home isolation.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing I want to touch up on is when the people blaming the government side of things. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, I'm not one to blame everyone for things, but people out there just.
In terms of, are you talking about like sort of the conspiracy theory, or in terms about how it's been managed?
Like, I've done an episode where I haven't officially released it yet, but it will be by the time this goes on. It goes into both sides of things, but my main thing is, it doesn't matter how you interpret this whole COVID-19. Just use some common sense. If people are getting ill, don't go out. Doesn't matter how you think this COVID-19 came, where it's from, how you contract it. It's real. It's killing people. Yeah. Stay away from people. Don't blame the government. Blame yourself, buddy.
Yeah. And look, from what I understand, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a specialist in infections and diseases, but you know, we're not treating this thing, right? So we're just managing symptoms. So when people going into hospitals, we haven't got a vaccine, we haven't got a cure, we're putting them on ventilators to allow them to keep on breathing. And allowing them to keep on breathing then allows their body to try and get over this little bit of the illness, and then for them to be weaned off and then discharged, you know, just like Boris, the president. So until we find a vaccine, which is going to be a long period of time, the best way to manage this is obviously people staying at home, people isolating, which reduces how quick people are going to contract this illness. And therefore, the people that are in hospital, and, you know, yesterday on the daily report at 5 o'clock, it's one of the things that's in my routine. It's the first time the TV goes on for that day. Yeah. You know, they've started talking about there's actually some availability in the hospitals. You know, it's amazing that Nightingale just popped up out of nowhere. The army put it together in 2 or 3 days. You know, it's unheard of. We've now got some availability in the hospitals because of people home isolating, and because we've slowed the rate of people catching this. So then the people that actually really do need the beds can have access to it. We haven't got people queuing outside and not being able to get to it. But in reality, we're just putting people on ventilators. We're not treating it. You know, so we're just fighting it. And, you know, this could be something that we have to deal with, you know. But until that vaccine, the only thing that most of us can do is to stay home isolating. You know, I went for a run yesterday in Alexander Palace, and for my liking, there was far too many people sat down having picnics. You know, I think it's a bit of a selfish act. I think it's great that the weather has been good, and I think it's great that we're able to go outside and exercise. But I also think it's important that we stick to the rules a little bit, you know, stick to sort of just exercising for now. We shouldn't be sitting down in parks and, you know, shouldn't be sitting down in parks and having picnics, or, you know, be playing football or rugby or anything like that. I think it's a little bit of a selfish act. Now, that's obviously based on the current situation where I live in, where, you know, fortunately I do have a balcony to sit out in. I know other people are in a lot more harsher environments, and I really feel, as we were saying before we clicked record, I really feel for the people that are stuck in high rises without any outdoor space. You know, I really feel for the families and the people with kids where they don't have any opportunity to sit in a garden. You know, it's really, really tough times. But I don't think we should be filling these parks just because the weather's good. And, you know, from what I gather, we did all behave during Easter. I don't think now we should go back the other way.
No, it's just common sense, isn't it? Just
It is. But, you know, who am I to preach? I'm just a physiotherapist.
Yeah, it's just, we're all just who we are, isn't it?
Yeah. It's very true.
Listen, I mean, listen, the most part of this show, been talking about food. Is anything missing since this lockdown?
Anything I'm missing?
Yeah, man.
You know what? I really can't complain. So where I live not too far away from a high street where we've got 3 big supermarkets. Yeah. And apart from having a long queue to get in, the guys and girls that work there are doing so well to make sure food's come in. So, you know, going back to our initial conversation about trying to split up the week, Monday to Friday to the weekend, what me and my wife have been doing is we've been having sort of themed evenings on a weekend. Nice. So last Saturday we had like a Caribbean evening. So I marinated, did jerk chicken. Yeah. We had like coleslaw. We had like corn on the cobs, like rice and peas made. We made like a dark and stormy, so mixing a little bit of alcohol with a delicious bit of food, playing reggae music in the background. The weekend before, we had a Mexican, so I made ceviche. We had margaritas. She made chicken tacos, and we had like Mexican house music on in the background. So you know. And, you know, once again, I didn't make this idea up. I saw someone else do it, and I thought it'd be good to do. We're trying to do that just to try and keep a little bit of an excitement and something to look forward to. You know, our weekend, we've got mates that set up like pub quizzes on the Friday. So we've had pub quizzes on the Friday. And then on the Saturday, we've just been doing these themed evenings. So, you know, I really, really can't complain. And if I can come away from this learning a few more recipes and trying a few different stuff, like I'd never even had a margarita cocktail before until like 2 Saturdays ago. Turns out they're great. Absolutely love them. If I can come away from this trying a few different things, then I'm a happy man. What about you? What are you missing?
What am I missing? Well, you remember, Jason, me and him been talking about how we haven't had dim sum. I think that's,
yeah.
I mean, dim sum, I haven't had it since November. I mean, as soon as I heard about this coronavirus, I haven't been anywhere near a dim sum place. So it's been a while. That's the only thing I'm missing right now.
What about making it?
Oh, it's too much work, man. It's just too much skillful chefs that can do it. There's not many of them, and it's not worth it.
Yeah, this time's definitely challenged my cookery skills, and we realised it's a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah.
You know, even just the simple thing of like making like cookies and stuff. There's definitely been some disasters in the kitchen in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
saying,
I mean, the last few weeks, my cooking level's gone back up. I mean, we started doing some sourdough the other day, and it's the first time I baked bread, and that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I saw that, mate. That's awesome. You'll have to send me the recipe for that.
Oh man, I searched on YouTube for a few different recipes.
Yeah,
mixed it all up, so it wasn't strict recipe on that one.
Okay.
Got to start growing your live bacteria, your live yeast first. That's the start.
Yeah, and you know, I've once again, I'm fortunate enough. I've befriended a guy who lives on our high street who owns a fruit and veg shop.
Yeah,
and you know, for him, business is absolutely booming, and because a lot of the people where I live are really trying to support the local services rather than going to the big food chains. The butchers and the veg shop, fruit and veg shop, are absolutely ram-packed. But he says, you know, the harsh thing is at the moment is now I don't know if you've noticed, but the supermarkets have started increasing their prices on meat and fruit and veg. It's because the farmers have as well. So he's sort of saying that, yes, he's making more money than he did from Corona, but it's actually costing him more.
Yeah.
So, you know, every positive has like a little bit of a negative as well, because the farmers are able to charge more.
Yeah.
Then the local person that set up shop is able to charge more. But, you know, I guess that was a bit of a segue. I'm still managing to eat healthily as best as I can.
That's nice. Yeah, man. I mean, like, food, definitely. I haven't been out yet, so I'm not sure what it's like out there, luckily. Full-on isolation.
Yeah. This is where I really am thankful. My high street is walking distance, so I'm really lucky that I don't have to sort of jump into a car and drive to the local supermarket to be able to see what's available. It was amazing how the hoarders have now sort of changed their mindset a little bit. You know, go back 2-3 weeks when everyone was stockpiling on toilet roll and everyone was stockpiling on food, and now eventually all that food runs out, or they've had to throw it away because it's gone out of date. You know, it's not a negative thing at all. People did it almost on an act that they were trying to look after their family, but it's just a panic response. It's just a knee-jerk response, you know. And unfortunately, it led to some of the true key workers, like the NHS workers, not being able to have food and stuff. Whilst now things have changed, you know, one of the great things my wife has sort of said about is, you know, people are sending in loads of food into the NHS, you know, like wasabi and like Domino's and stuff. So, you know, I think it's really, at times like this, it's made us really appreciate the NHS. It wasn't sort of a short distance ago since when people were when the doctors and the nurses were asking for a pay rise and they were being rejected. You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden everyone's having to realise, doesn't matter who you are, whether it be a CEO of a bank or whether it be just a local man who works into a shop, we're now realising the value of the NHS, and we realise how lucky we are, and we realise that these people that are not paid a huge amount of money do a huge amount for us. These are the people that are ultimately keeping people alive at present. And, you know, it's not just the NHS workers, as the government was saying, it's the couriers, it's the people that are delivering food, it's the people that are running the buses, you know, it's people that are still running public transport. It's huge.
Yeah, man. I mean, slightly off topic, but it wasn't that long ago when people were the conspiracy theory of selling off NHS. I mean,
yeah. And, you know, privatisation has been going on since David Cameron's years, and it is just a way of keeping a bit of the NHS afloat. But I think the whole theory of the NHS being fully privatised, I don't think that will happen. The reason why is, unfortunately, the NHS works on a deficit each year, so it does cost a huge amount of taxpayers' money. But, you know, all we have to do is compare our health system to other countries, and you realise that we are really lucky, and we should really value what we've got.
Into after the NHS. I mean, we had this conversation before all this happened with some of my friends. I mean, we are very lucky to have NHS. I mean, you just compare our England compared to somewhere like the US.
Yeah. You know, we, you know, it's an incredible service,
All right, man. I think let's bring this to an end. I think we've been chatting on for a bit, and I'd like to thank you for your time and your advice that you've been giving to all our viewers and listeners out there. And I hope everything's well with you and your missus, and enjoy the time on your weekend doing your fancy date night at home.
Yeah, it's awesome, mate. I've enjoyed it. I apologise if I've blabbered on for too long, but mate, I think it's a great thing that you're doing. Keep it up, and yeah, I look forward to when it comes out.
Yes, buddy. Thank you very much, and let's chat later.
All right, mate. Take it easy, buddy.
All right.